Far beyond the known borders of their star charts, the Deathworlders' fleet drifted silently through the endless black, their ships cutting through space like shadows in the void. These were not ordinary explorers or diplomats, but warriors and survivors hardened by the harshest planets ever known. Worlds where survival meant adapting to deadly environments and constant threats. Their reputation stretched far and wide. Wherever life seemed impossible, Deathworlders thrived. It was in this reputation and spirit that Captain Lyra Voss found strength when an unexpected signal blinked across their sensors. An SOS coming, from a star system that was not even on their maps. The message was faint but clear, a desperate call for help pulsing from a point deep in uncharted space. The crew around Captain Voss waited, tense, as the fleet adjusted its course. The captain's voice was steady but firm, ordering an immediate investigation into the signal's origin. As their ships moved closer, the instruments began to pick up something strange. A large, wrecked vessel, floating aimlessly in the silent dark, battered but still alive with strange, flickering lights. It was unlike anything the Deathworlders had ever seen, shaped with unfamiliar curves and surfaces that suggested technology far beyond their own. Yet, despite the advanced design, the ship was clearly in distress, broadcasting the SOS in a loop. The mystery deepened, and with it, the weight of uncertainty settled over the fleet. Was this a genuine call for help? Or a trap laid by unknown enemies in the dark? The crew debated in low voices, weighing the risks. Some argued for caution. This could be a lure, something deadly hidden behind the distress signal. Others felt a pull stronger than fear, a call to help beings possibly as desperate as themselves once were. Captain Voss watched the flickering screens, the distant stars outside their viewports offering no answers. The tension was thick in the command room, every moment stretching longer as the fleet closed the gap to the wreck. Shadows flickered across the walls as the light from the distant star system shifted. No one knew what awaited them beyond that signal. The strange vessel, silent except for its persistent SOS, seemed almost like a ghost floating in space, waiting for a decision. The Deathworlders, forged in struggle and hardship, had always chosen to face the unknown head-on. But this was different. This time, the unknown might not just be hostile nature. They could be facing enemies of a kind never encountered before. Yet, retreat was not an option. Captain Voss's mind raced through scenarios, preparing for contact, possible conflict, or perhaps an alliance that could change the fate of many. The silence around them was suddenly broken by the alert of approaching vessels on the scanners, unknown ships moving fast, closing in on the wreck. The fleet shifted instantly into alert mode. The choice was clear. The Deathworlders would not ignore a call for help, no matter the danger. As the first boarding teams prepared, the captain gave the order that would set the course for what might be a battle not only for survival, but for the very future of their kind, and others lost in the stars. The shadowy wreck and the approaching enemy forces set the stage for a story of courage, survival, and unexpected friendship far from home. Captain Lyra Voss stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the flickering readouts as her tactical officers warned of the risks ahead. The sensors still showed no clear sign of friendly life aboard the wrecked alien ship, and the unknown technology made it impossible to predict what dangers might lurk inside. Some voices in the room urged caution, arguing that the SOS could be a trap set by a hostile force waiting to ambush the Deathworlders. The enemy fleet, moving swiftly through the void, was already detected closing in on their position, making every moment critical. Despite these warnings, Captain Voss felt a deep sense of duty rooted in the very nature of her people, survivors and defenders of the helpless. With a firm command, she ordered boarding parties to prepare for deployment. The ship's airlocks hissed open, and small teams of Deathworlders, equipped with both advanced gear and battle-hardened instincts, entered the dark corridors of the alien wreck. Inside, the atmosphere was tense and eerie, the halls flickering with unfamiliar lights and strange alien symbols etched into the walls. It was not long before the teams found survivors, aliens whose faces and shapes were unlike anything the Deathworlders had encountered. These beings carried the weariness of a long escape from horrors beyond imagining. their diplomatic garb torn and stained from their desperate flight. They revealed themselves as envoys from a distant planet, caught in the grip of a ruthless galactic empire that crushed resistance without mercy. The story they told was one of destruction and fear. Worlds burned, populations enslaved, and freedom extinguished by overwhelming force. The Deathworlders, with their own history of fighting against impossible odds on hostile worlds, felt a stirring of recognition. They understood what it meant to face such oppression, to survive when hope seemed lost. Yet, trust was not easily given, and suspicion lingered like a shadow. Could these alien envoys truly be allies? Or were they pawns in a larger game? Captain Voss weighed these questions carefully as she agreed to escort the survivors to a nearby safe system, hoping to protect them from the Empire's reach. The alliance was fragile, born from necessity and cautious hope rather than friendship. As the Deathworlders prepared to move out, their sensors confirmed the growing presence of the enemy fleet, the same forces that had chased the envoys through the stars. The dark shapes of their ships appeared on the horizon, fast and relentless, closing the distance with deadly intent. The Deathworlders' fleet moved with precision and speed, their formations tight and ready for combat. Every crew member knew that what lay ahead was more than a fight for survival. It was a stand for freedom and a chance to change the fate of countless worlds. As engines roared and weapon systems came online, the tension on the bridge was electric. Captain Voss glanced at the faces of her officers, finding determination mirrored in their eyes. The uneasy alliance had set a new course, and there was no turning back. The fleet surged forward, the weight of hope and danger riding with them through the cold emptiness of space, towards a confrontation that would test their courage and the very spirit of the Deathworlders. The dark expanse of space was alive with tension as the Deathworlders' fleet faced down the relentless advance of the enemy ships. Despite being outnumbered, Captain Lyra Voss knew that their survival depended on more than just raw firepower. It was their ability to think differently, to adapt like they had on countless deadly worlds, that gave them a chance. The enemy fleet, sleek and numerous, moved with aggressive precision, confident that their overwhelming numbers would crush any resistance. Yet the Deathworlders remained calm and steady, their ships weaving through the void with surprising agility, using the shadows of nearby asteroids and debris fields as cover, turning the empty space into a complex battlefield. Their weapons, though fewer in number, were deployed strategically, hitting key enemy vessels and disrupting their formations. Captain Voss's voice cut through the comms with clear commands, directing rapid shifts in formation and exploiting weaknesses that only a lifetime of harsh survival could teach. As the battle raged on, the Deathworlders unleashed tactics that confused and disoriented the enemy, who struggled to adapt to this unfamiliar fighting style. The fleet's sharpshooters targeted communication arrays, while their engineers hacked enemy sensors to create brief moments of chaos. But the true turning point came when Captain Voss made a bold decision: to board the enemy flagship and disable its command systems directly. Leading a team of elite soldiers, she moved through the battle in a swift, heavily armored boarding pod, piercing the enemy lines and landing amidst chaos aboard the massive ship. Inside, the corridors were a maze of alien technology and flashing alarms, but the Deathworlders pressed forward with relentless determination. They moved swiftly and silently, neutralizing guards and hacking into the ship's core systems, their human ingenuity and courage shining through even in the darkest moments. Captain Voss herself reached the command center, fighting past the last of the defenders to shut down the enemy's control network. With the flagship's systems crippled, confusion spread through the enemy fleet. Taking advantage of this disruption, the Deathworlders launched a coordinated counterattack, pushing back the remaining ships with renewed vigor. The battle's tide had turned, a victory born from strategy, bravery, and an unbreakable will to survive. As the enemy retreated into the vastness of space, Captain Voss looked out at the stars, knowing this fight was only the beginning, but it was proof that even against overwhelming odds, the Deathworlders would never back down. The quiet that followed the battle was heavy with a strange mixture of relief and tension, the stars outside the Deathworlders' fleet seeming colder and darker after the fierce clash. The alien envoy, once wary and guarded, now spoke openly in the fleet's command chamber, their voices carrying the weight of a truth that could change the fate of many worlds. They described a galactic empire vast and ruthless, a force that did not merely conquer but erased the identities of entire civilizations, forcing them into submission and stripping away their freedom. Their empire was a relentless machine of control and assimilation, crushing any resistance without mercy or hesitation. As the envoy's words unfolded, the Deathworlders listened with a deep sense of understanding, for their own history was carved from survival against overwhelming threats on some of the deadliest planets known. Their harsh upbringing, their ability to adapt and fight when all seemed lost, made them uniquely suited to stand against such a merciless enemy. Captain Lyra Voss, standing firm among her crew and the alien representatives, recognized that this was more than a battle for one species. It was a fight for the very soul of freedom in the galaxy. The Deathworlders, often seen as warriors of last resort, found a new purpose in this revelation. They pledged to unite with the envoy's people, forming a fragile but hopeful coalition determined to resist the Empire's spread. The strategy was clear: survival through alliance, strength through unity. Knowing they could not fight alone, the Deathworlders used their advanced communication networks to send out a call across the stars, a beacon to other oppressed species, a rallying cry for all who dreamed of freedom from the Empire's shadow. This message echoed through space, carried by signals that reached hidden outposts, distant colonies, and scattered resistance groups. The call promised hope and strength in numbers, inviting those who had suffered under the Empire's rule to join a new fight, a new hope. The weight of this revelation hung over the fleet, but alongside it burned a fierce determination. The Deathworlders and their new allies prepared for the long struggle ahead, knowing that the path would be dangerous and uncertain. Yet in the face of such a dark threat, their combined courage and will to survive became a light, a beacon for the galaxy's future, shaped by those who refused to surrender. The stars seemed to shine with a new light as the Deathworlders and their allies prepared for what lay ahead, a vast campaign to challenge the expanding reach of the galactic empire that had cast its long shadow over countless worlds. Captain Lyra Voss stood on the bridge of her flagship, gazing out into the endless night of space, reflecting on the long journey that had brought them to this pivotal moment. Their history, forged on the harshest and most unforgiving planets, had tempered them into warriors and survivors unlike any other. The lessons learned from battling savage environments, from enduring the impossible, had shaped not only their bodies but their spirits, a spirit now ready to protect not just themselves, but those who could not defend their own freedom. Around her, fleets from various species gathered, forming fragile but growing alliances born from shared pain and hope. These ships, once strangers in the void, now moved as one, a rising force of resistance that promised to stand against tyranny. The alliance was not perfect. Distrust lingered, and the scars of past betrayals whispered warnings in quiet corners. Yet the shared goal of freedom and survival forged a bond stronger than fear or doubt. Messages of hope spread like wildfire across communication networks, reaching isolated pockets of resistance and oppressed colonies, igniting flames of courage and determination where despair had once taken root. Captain Voss knew that this was just the beginning of a long and difficult war, one that would test their limits and demand sacrifices. But she also knew that the human resilience she carried, born from the relentless fight for life on death, worlds, was a beacon that others could follow, a symbol of defiance against the darkness. As the fleets assembled, ready to move into the unknown and face the Empire's might, Voss felt a fierce pride in what they represented. The Deathworlders, once seen as mere survivors of hostile planets, were becoming leaders of a movement that might change the course of history. With steady hands and a clear mind, she gave the orders that would set their campaign in motion, knowing that every step forward was a strike against oppression. The vastness of space was no longer just a void of endless danger. It was a stage for courage, unity, and the fight for a new dawn. In that moment, beneath the stars that had witnessed so much suffering and struggle, the future gleamed with the promise of freedom, lit by the unyielding spirit of those who refused to give up. In the vast darkness of space, As the distant stars twinkled faintly against the black canvas of the galaxy, the Deathworlders' fleet gathered with a new sense of purpose and hope, preparing to face the greatest challenge they had ever known. Captain Lyra Voss stood on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes scanning the viewports where Allied ships, both familiar and strange, assembled into a formidable armada. Each vessel represented more than just firepower. They were symbols of defiance, unity, and the unbreakable will to fight against the cruel expansion of a galactic empire that sought to crush all freedom under its iron rule. Voss's mind drifted back to the harsh planets where the Deathworlders had been forged, worlds where survival was a daily battle against brutal climates, dangerous creatures, and unforgiving terrain. It was in those deadly environments that their people had learned resilience, adaptability, and the strength to endure when everything seemed lost. Those lessons had not only shaped their bodies, but also hardened their spirits, creating warriors who could face overwhelming odds without surrender. Now that spirit was their greatest weapon, one that could inspire allies and ignite hope in the darkest corners of the galaxy. The coalition forming around them was fragile yet powerful, a mix of species from different worlds, each scarred by the Empire's conquest, but united by a common cause. Trust was still new and sometimes shaky, but the desire for freedom created a bond that grew stronger with every shared strategy meeting, every coordinated patrol, and every signal sent across the void. Messages traveled swiftly to distant resistance groups, reaching those who had lost everything but refused to give up. The fleet was not just a military force, it was a beacon, a rallying point for the oppressed to gather strength and fight back. As ships hummed with activity and crew members prepared for the difficult campaign ahead, Voss thought about the battles yet to come. The Galactic Empire was vast and ruthless, its power rooted in overwhelming numbers and relentless oppression. But the Deathworlders and their allies had something the Empire lacked, a fierce determination to protect others and the courage to face the unknown with unwavering resolve. The captain's voice was steady as she issued commands, her leadership guiding the fleet toward their first target in a long war that would test every skill and every ounce of bravery. Each ship, each fighter pilot, and every member of the crew understood the stakes. They were fighting not just for survival, but for the chance to restore freedom and dignity to worlds under tyranny. The Alliance's strength came not only from weapons and ships, but from the shared belief that even the smallest spark of resistance could grow into a flame, bright enough to challenge the Empire's darkness. As the Deathworlders' fleet set course toward the outer edges of the Empire's control, a quiet hope spread among the stars, a hope born from human resilience and the courage to protect those who could not protect themselves. In that moment, the vast emptiness of space no longer felt lonely or cold. It felt alive with possibility, a new dawn breaking across the galaxy, lighting the path for those who would stand against the coming storm and fight for a future where freedom was more than just a dream.